afternoon, everybody. I'm your host, Crystal. This is another edition of the 9 o'clock Meltdown podcast. And over phone, I have Lillie Lemon of her new band, Kinder Creatures. Hello.
Hi.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Now, Kinder Creatures is a newer endeavor you've hit.
Right.
I first saw you guys, you had played the Red Herring. Sadly, the Red Herring is no longer around, but you guys had played a couple years ago, and then I had you on my show when it was just Lillie Lemon. But now you've got this new kind of endeavor. Let's dive right in.
Awesome, let's do it.
So, what is Kinder Creatures about? Does it still kind of follow the same suit as what Lillie Lemon did? Is this kind of a more new endeavor that you guys are hitting?
So, Kind of Creatures is kind of a similar music style as Lillie Lemon in terms of, like, there's a lot of synthesis, a lot of lights and fun beats and things, but we're also sort of moving toward more conceptual writing.
Okay.
In the music, and so we're kind of trying to distance ourselves from Lillie Lemon as an act, because I think our new stuff is a little more political, a little more edgy. And we also now have like a full band. And we wanted the new name to kind of reflect all of that.
Excellent. So I guess what kind of has changed from Lillie Lemon now to Kinder Creatures? I mean, besides having a band and things like that, I know you and Eric have been hitting the road a lot. I follow you guys on Instagram and Facebook quite a bit, which is, I love your guys' posts. It's absolutely phenomenal what you guys are doing, and we'll get into that a little later. But I guess what kind of changed? I mean, what brought about the style change? Just the political environment, or just kind of growing and changing with the times?
Yeah, I think the political environment was a big part of it. I kind of got to a point where I realized I had a lot to say about what was going on in the world, and I didn't want to waste the opportunity that I have as an artist to speak on things that are important to me, and a lot of that, is a reflection of sort of a compassionate need to help people who are in a position where they can't help themselves, especially that, there's a lot of voiceless people in this country right now.
Right.
And I feel like I have the privilege of having a voice, and I'm like, it's time for me to do something.
Definitely. And, I feel the same way. So I guess what kind of writing style are you taking on? I mean, is it really political? Like, I'm thinking Green Day's 2006 American Idiot kind of album. Is it more kind of political savvy like that? Is it more kind of satire? Is it more hidden messages? Or do you just kind of lay it all out in the open?
I like that you mentioned American Idiot, because that's a concept album, and our album is a concept album too, but it's sort of it's a more of a fantasy setting.
Okay.
And it's set in 1400s France during this time period. There were a lot of like witch hunts and things, and there was this one town called Valais that actually wound up killing like 300 of its own citizens for being werewolves.
Werewolves? You don't hear about that.
It sounds so bizarre. It's like, how could that be? Like, how could anyone? Because werewolves aren't real. So, like, how did they prove that somebody's a werewolf? And then I found out that all it really takes to go on trial for being a werewolf was for two of your neighbors to say that you were one. And then suddenly a few things kind of clicked in about, how people are ratting out their neighbors for being illegal immigrants, or calling the cops because there's a black person in the neighborhood, like that kind of thing. And I like started thinking about, like, where does this fear come from of our neighbors? And it's because we tell people that the world is big and scary and they need to be protected by a huge military. And if you tell someone the world is big and scary, they're going to start thinking they're a part of the world too, and their neighbors are a part of the world, and you start to insulate that fear in your own neighborhood.
Right. And I mean, you can also bring it back, not to jump the gun here, but you can bring it back to, the 1940s and,
sure.
World War II and, almost any kind of propaganda, war-related thing. Your concept album, how on earth did you discover about this town in France? I mean, werewolves? Really? I mean, I've heard, we've all heard about the Salem witch trials and things like that, and it's not just Salem, it was also the rest of the world that did this too. I watched a riveting documentary about witchcraft in Great Britain. and how that whole thought process kind of got started, and then it came over with the Puritans, blah 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 blah. Okay,
Right.
but werewolves,
It's fascinating,
yeah.
this town was called Vallis, and
Mm,
this was also around the same time where they were building Trace Italian, which was sort of like a fortified city. They would build a wall
mhm,
around the city to kind of insulate the castle, and these walls that they were building, the Trace Italian, was absolutely stunningly beautiful from the air because they were
mhm.
star forts,
Oh wow.
and they had these pointed sides. And if you just Google it if you get a chance, because they look gorgeous, and I
Mhm,
saw these like star forts, and I thought, this is so beautiful and so awful.
mhm,
Um, and so I imagined a world where Valis builds a star fort around itself at the same time as excommunicating or executing people that they think are werewolves, and the kind of like spiraled into the story from there.
mhm.
And that's what the concept album is about. This like version of Valis where werewolves are real, but they're not what you think they are, and the city's built a wall around itself. Obviously very thematic of the times. And the first song on the album is called "Build a Wall."
Mhm.
So it doesn't really pull too many punches. It's pretty literally a representation of modern America.
Good for you. Good for you. Taking the bull by the horns and seeing where it leads you. That's absolutely wonderful. Lily, how did you meet the other members of your band? Did you put out a Craigslist ad? Was this kind of some networking that you had done?
Yeah, so Monterey, where I live, Monterey, California, is not a very big town,
Hmm.
and there are lots of really good artists here in the scene that we have. And one of the kind of more local cats who lives in Salinas, California, his name is Zachy G,
Hmm.
Zachary Guerin, and he plays for a band called the Strawberry Girls. He used to be in Dance Gavin Dance. He's a guitarist.
Hmm.
He's a really incredible performer, and Eric has worked with him on projects in the past, and we asked if he would be willing to play with us, and he was like, "Yeah, sure."
Hmm.
When I'm in town, because he tours a lot too with Strawberry Girls, and so now he's a member of the band, and then the drummer Darren is another guy that Eric is familiar with, who's another local guy in Seaside, California, and then all these towns are like right next to each other. And Darren was really stoked to have a band to play
Hmm.
some original music because you know how it is with cover bands. It's really easy to get a cover band gig if you're a good player,
Hmm.
but it can get kind of boring to play the same music over and over again. And so I think we were all kind of excited to jump into something new.
Excellent, excellent. Lily, that sounds wonderful. Let's take a little side tangent here, if we may. And now you and Eric are located out in California. Sounds like the rest of your bandmates are as well. And now I grew up in the time where, it was either California or New York, and that's where you
Mm-hmm.
went to, quote, make it. I guess for nostalgic purposes, I am still of that caliber. However, however, I went to California about 2 years ago, and honestly, going as an adult, it really shattered my 12-year-old dream because
Oh.
I mean, it's so expensive out there. And then I guess, is that kind of your stance out in California? I guess my whole meaning behind this side tangent here is, how the hell do you make it in California as an
Oh my
artist?
gosh.
Because that's
Yeah, not to be like a total bubble burster, but I don't think I think it's very difficult to make it as an artist in California.
Mhm.
I think it is not like ooh, it's not easy, and
Mhm.
you're right. The cost of living is outrageous here,
Mhm.
and there's kind of a subculture of people trying to change that. But
Okay.
to make it as a musician, I think
Mhm.
like strictly a musician, um, you have to be doing a lot of wedding gigs, or you're like a
Mhm.
session musician playing in a studio for another band, which
Mhm.
which is totally also another doable thing. Or
Mhm.
you're a sound engineer.
Mhm.
Um, I don't feel like California is much different than the rest of the country in that sense, and that like you have to have a lot of skills and utilize them frequently.
Right.
I don't think there's too many people that do it just as an artist these days.
Mm.
Um,
True.
and yeah, California is not an exception to that. I think it's even harder here
Mm.
than in
Mhm.
some other places.
Right, right. And I didn't mean to burst your bubble or anything like that. You are an amazing artist, and you're doing it. You're making it work for you, which I think is really, really cool. So thank you
You're so
for
sweet.
thank you for letting me take that tangent. But yes, no, I mean, it's like any bigger city, though, too. The cost of living will, sometimes outweigh with what you're taking in, working a day job, but then it's that I actually just interviewed Matt Larson. He is a band manager, or has been a band manager in the past. And we really got down and dirty with the business side of things of musicianship and artistry, and the fact that it is a full-time job and it takes a lot of sacrifice, and you got to make it work for you, whether that's having a 9 to 5 and playing on the weekends, or playing and giving lessons, or going out on tours. So uh, definitely. So, Lily, thank you so much for that. But let's jump back
Yeah.
into Kinder Creatures and why we're here today. So, excellent, excellent. So, Kinder Creatures, where can people kind of find the music? Have you released an album under Kinder Creatures yet? Is it coming out?
So the album is coming out in 2020,
Okay.
and we've released a couple of singles. One of them, Hunter, is going to be on the album. And then we wrote a little Christmas song this year,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Slightly Bitter. And
Okay.
it's sort of an anti-Christmas song in some ways. It's not exactly chestnuts or anything, but
Okay.
I think it's a good take on the season. Hunter is actually a song, the first single from the album, and you can find Kinder Creatures. We're on Spotify and iTunes and wherever else you listen to music these days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you could actually I really encourage people to follow us, because we're going to be releasing a bunch of singles before the album comes out, and that Spotify is one of the best places to get that.
And now, did you guys go into a studio for this album? Did you kind of do it DIY style?
We're lucky in that a lot of our instrumentation is direct input, because we play with synthesizers. That means we can plug the instrument into the computer, basically. Like,
right.
It's like kind of a one-step process. So we don't need to be in a sound-treated studio to record that. Vocals are a little bit harder, and actually, Eric built a mic with a kit that's a replica of a really kind of expensive mic.
Oh,
and so he built it. He soldered this thing together, and we've got a little tiny baffle for it. And so we recorded vocals here in our home studio, and then we actually flew to the Twin Cities to track our drummer, who's also named Eric. He recorded on the album, and he's a really nice guy that we met on tour, who's a great drummer.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
And everything else, we did in home.
Very cool, very cool. I think last time we talked, you had really kind of hit the DIY side of things pretty hard, if I'm recalling correctly. So yeah, I mean, now musicians, I mean, I'm doing a podcast in my living room right now. I mean, how cool is that? I don't have to drive in this snowy weather to get to the studio, and although it does miss out on a little bit of some magic, though, too. But yeah, you can record full-length albums. I mean, as long as you know kind of what you're doing and know your way around a few things, you can get it sounding pretty good. So that's awesome. So Eric knows a little bit about microphones and things like that. Then
he's kind of a do-it-all kind of guy. He's the Eagle Scout, and so he never backs down from a challenge. He's also kind of a bit of an engineer. Mm-hmm. He fixes all kinds of things and builds desks, and is a mix engineer, and he's great at programming. So he kind of he learns stuff on his own and does it. Mm-hmm. He has no fear. It's amazing.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. And Lily, last time I saw you guys perform, I know I made a mistake of saying that your costumes were kind of steampunk in a way. They're not steampunk at all, from what I remember. Have you kind of changed your costume style up with this endeavor, or are you still kind of hitting it in the old school fashion?
We're going a little more creature with it. At our name change party, Wobbles, he wore some feathers, and he was a bird, and I kind of went I tried to be a werewolf, but I wound up just kind of looking like a skunk, I think.
Oh, no!
But it was cute. It was still cute. Yeah. So I think we're going more toward like an animal vibes. Mm-hmm. But it's still got that kind of dark fun playfulness that
Hmm.
you remember.
Yes, yes. Excellent, excellent. Have you guys plotted out a tour yet, or are you going to wait for these singles to kind of come out?
We're planning on touring in May,
Okay.
and we're gonna kind of stick more to the West Coast this time. We're touring with another band. Our band is going to be towing everybody, so it's going to be kind of fun.
Uh-huh.
Little 3-week tour.
Oh, excellent, excellent,
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. And Lily, to kind of speak to your Instagram account, maybe last year or over the summer, forgive me if I'm wrong, your van actually got broken into
Oh yeah,
while you were,
yeah, in Washington.
yes, while you
Oh.
were out on tour. Oh my God. But,
It was an exciting moment. But you know what?
oof.
People came together to help us. Like
Hmm.
we figured out how much stuff wasn't covered by our insurance, which
Hmm.
most of our stuff is covered, but there were some things that weren't. And we put out a social media call. Hey guys, can anyone help us? And people just donated to our Indiegogo
Hmm.
and saved the day. It was
Perfect.
amazing. It was
Yeah.
like the fastest response I've ever seen.
Mhm. And now, from that post, I actually did some research myself, and there is actually an insurance policy that you can buy, and it's just strictly for musicians and
Hmm.
your instruments. I didn't know that that existed. I thought it was covered under, quote, renter's insurance or something like that. But that's really cool that there's kind of this whole other subculture just for musicians and independent artists and acts and things like that. So thank you for that, by the way.
Oh yeah, we
Mhm.
use Music Pro. They're amazing. I
Mhm.
mean, it's really cheap to do depending on how much gear you have,
Right.
and then it's like $100 deductible,
Hmm.
and that's it. And
Hmm.
so if you break something, if you drop a guitar and it's totally busted and you're on tour, like they'll replace it
Hmm.
immediately. They'll just send you a check. It's incredible. I mean, it's a great service for artists. I think all of us artists should be doing this because it's so affordable.
Uh-huh. Excellent.
They should
Excellent.
make me like a brand
You are in some ways. I mean, you definitely are. You're a brand ambassador for a lot of different things. I remember I written to you on Facebook, and I think I had asked the question of, do you have a day job or not, or something along those lines. And you disclosed to me that you had quit your day job quite a while ago and just kind of completely focused on music. So that I think is really cool. It's kind of that flow from, I'm going to be 9 to 5 and be a person here, and then kind of that follow through to living your dream. So Lily, that's amazing, and you're definitely an inspiration to me as well as other people. Um,
Oh,
and this
so sweet.
whole name change and band change and things like that. I mean, you're growing and changing as an artist, and I'm very excited to see what you guys come up with next. Um,
Oh, thank you.
yes, yes. I'm a little disappointed though that you're just going to tour to the coast and not come
I know, me too.
and not come to the Midwest.
My favorite place in the world, I tell you.
Yes, yes. And now you're actually from the Midwest, aren't you?
Yes, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm from
Mhm.
Sheboygan. Uh,
Sheboygan to California. And I believe last time we had spoken, now you went to California for college or you just moved out there? I can't remember.
I actually went for a term of service for AmeriCorps. So I
Mm.
was
Hmm.
I was working in schools as a literacy tutor
Hmm.
for underserved youth.
Hmm.
It was a great year. Had a really good time. And
Yeah.
then I was I was here, and I was like, well, maybe I'll stick around for a little bit.
Hmm.
And 9 years later, still hanging out.
Hanging out, making music. All
Yeah.
right. Excellent. Excellent. Yes. And Eric and you are still making music to this day. That's absolutely phenomenal and wonderful. Um, so the other members of your band are kind of California based. It sounds like they've got other bands going on as well. How do they fit in your band and fit in their bands? Time management?
Oh, that's it. We we were just like, okay, when are you guys touring again? All right, we won't book during that time, that kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
Darren Thomas he's also a dad and
Mm-hmm.
married, and he's got his full time job, and it's just we just all make it work because we care about the music enough, I think.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, perfect. And now, Lily, let's jump into kind of lyric wise with this new kind of concept album you have. We were talking, you're kind of pulling from history and comparing it to what's happening nowadays in kind of a different venture there. Lyrically, where are you pulling from? Are you pulling from history? Are you pulling from what's happening now? Are you kind of crossing the two? What's happening? What can we expect?
Ooh, well, I built a story in this universe about these two girls who one of them is a werewolf and one is a person from inside the city.
Okay.
I sort of wrote this story about them to make it more personal, to kind of like show you the real victims of this essentially witch hunting that we have going on here and the way that we treat our neighbors these days. Yeah, so the lyrics are kind of these two characters kind of came out of this story all on their own, very naturally. And so the concept album is the story about how they meet and what they decide to do about, caring for each other and how they're going to possibly try to escape the city and live on their own or not. I don't want to give too much away, but
Okay.
it's kind of it's a story about their love for each other and how they want the world to be a better place.
Right, right. Interesting, interesting. Well, I can't wait to hear the whole thing now. You said that you were going to drop a couple singles before the album drops itself. Where can we hear those? Are you going to be up on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon?
Wherever you get your music, yeah. If you follow me on Spotify, you'll hear them there.
Okay.
You can buy the singles on iTunes, Amazon. If you use Music Match, it's going to be up there on all the Music Match sites. Wherever. I mean, it's going to be everywhere.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, Lily. Let's jump into how you kind of get your music out. As an independent artist, I mean, not with a record label backing or anything like that. Now, I've heard of Disc Kid. I've heard of that, and that kind of, you pay a monthly fee and it jets your music out to wherever it needs to be. But, I mean, if you record with GarageBand, that jumps it to iTunes. What kind of platform do you use to get your music out there?
So we use CD Baby.
Okay.
We're ASCAP artists, and so we dip from ASCAP and then we dip from CD Baby. And CD Baby is a lot like DistroKid. They distribute to a bunch of different services. I like CD Baby a lot because they kind of build a sub-site for you on their site, which is nice. When I distribute my music, I do everything. Because at this point, I think it's important for me to just get heard no matter where or what service. But you can kind of choose where your music lands and when you want it to launch and all this other stuff. It's interesting.
Oh, very cool,
yeah.
Very cool. And I guess just to kind of get into not too deep into the money side of things, because musicianship is an investment not only of time but of gear and driving from one place to the next and stuff like that. Now I know Disc Kid charges about a $20 monthly fee. How much do you actually pay for Bandcamp? And realizing that on Bandcamp people can either pay for your music or just kind of download it. I mean, if you allow that option to happen.
I don't think you pay anything for Bandcamp. I use CD Baby to distribute.
Okay.
And CD Baby, I think it's like $20 a single, and then it's a lifetime.
Oh, you only pay once.
Yeah, and then I think you pay for like a membership once a year. But yeah, you pay once for the single distribution, and then I think a full album, they have a different rate for that.
Oh, okay.
Which is kind of nice.
Yeah, interesting. Well, thank you for that tidbit. And to anyone who's listening, I mean, there's so many different platforms that musicians can use these days. I mean, there's DiscKid, CD Baby, Bandcamp. I mean, if you want to just jet it straight to iTunes, you can do that too. I mean, there's SoundCloud. SoundCloud is a platform I use to jet my podcasts out to wherever they need to be. That's fairly cheap as far as my realm goes. But yeah, I mean, there's so many different things out there now for the independent artists to get their name out there. I mean, there's YouTube still. So there's many, many, many different platforms. And now, I think last time we talked, I had kind of asked what your view was on the whole internet surge. In musicianship and DIY and doing it yourself. I mean, there's a lot to sift through now, but it's so accessible and just, it's absolutely phenomenal just to see how much has changed in even the last 10 years from you waited to get your magazine when the magazine would tell you when the new CD was coming out, and now
Ah.
it's just, oh, here, look at my Instagram page for my new single. Is it?
Instant satisfaction of music right now.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Do you find it's kind of harder to keep up with the changing times, or is it often easier?
I'm lucky enough to be born at a time when computers were a thing that we used in school.
Hmm.
And I think, like it or not, a lot of these services are here to stay.
Right.
Spotify and places that are kind of streaming music for free. I think the only thing you can really do is just try your best to embrace it
Hmm.
and work with it. Because I think, especially for smaller artists, I feel like it's a benefit to us to have access to these pretty affordable tools to release our music, because there was a time where we couldn't do it
Hmm.
without a label or a booking agent. And nowadays, because of the internet, we can do so much as independent artists that we couldn't do before.
Hmm.
And so I think ultimately it's all about how you treat it.
Hmm.
There are a lot of artists in my life that are of maybe a generation above mine. They balk at it, they resist it, they don't like it, and I understand that. Like, no one likes to give away their hard work,
Hmm.
but I'm at a point where I see it for what it is, and I know that it can be used as a tool if I use it right.
Hmm. Right, right. Wise words, Lily. Wise words. Thank you so much. Thank you. And now with the Kinder Creatures, I know you guys are kind of still in the concept stage, the baby stage, if you will, or maybe toddler stage. Um, are you guys looking at putting out some music videos? Are you looking at kind of writing the Kinder Creatures out, maybe doing a second album down the road?
Yes. So we just put out a music video for Hunter. I really encourage people to watch it because it's super dope. We had a friend of ours from Wisconsin who's a film photographer come out and shoot the video, and he has an incredible eye.
Perfect.
It's a cool little concept story too. And then we're going to put out a couple more music videos with our singles that are launching. So if you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, you'll see all that stuff.
Mhm.
And then also, you'll hear about it on Facebook if you're into that. So we're planning on a bunch of stuff coming out. And then, yeah, we do have thoughts about the next album, or at least I do. I've got another concept that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't want to give away too much because it might not pan out, but I have some ideas.
Ah, okay, fine. No little tidbits that you can drop for us here.
Okay. So I stumbled upon a story about a guy and his brother who were stowing away in an airplane wheel well.
What?
To illegally emigrate to America.
Oh wow.
And seek asylum.
Okay.
And they, as the wheel dropped,
Mm-hmm.
one of the brothers was already dead. Like he died of hypothermia, and the other brother fell to the earth, and he lived. And it was like the most fascinating. Like, I can't believe that could happen.
Right.
And then it turns out that wheel well stowaways aren't the most uncommon thing.
Really?
It happens sometimes. And it's very dangerous, and people die doing it. They die all the time trying to escape their countries. And in history, this is a really common thing where people would hide out on ships, and then once you're in the middle of the ocean, what are you going to do? Throw them overboard?
Right.
And so I just fell in this rabbit hole of reading these amazing stories, and I wonder, what's the motivation for these people so desperate to escape that they will risk their lives?
Right.
And so I have some songs in the works about this concept.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. Well, now I really can't wait. Jeez, yeah. now you have to do it, right?
Yeah, I guess it's
out there. All right, excellent. Lillie Lemon, everyone from Kinder Creatures. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube. Check out their new single and the music video for it called Hunter. Your album is going to drop here in 2020. You're going to take a short 3-week tour along the West Coast. How far are you guys going to go up the coast? Are you going to hit kind of the Oregon area or just kind of stick in the California region?
Yeah, we're going up to Oregon, and then we'll go across and down through Colorado and New Mexico.
Okay.
And then over Arizona and back up to California.
All right. Perfect, Lily. Yeah. Perfect. If somebody's interested in kind of seeing what you're up to, maybe booking you guys for a show, how can they do that?
kindercreaturesmusic.com.
Okay.
Also, just through our Facebook page, Kinder Creatures. If you look for Kinder Creatures, you'll find us.
And it's spelled with K's.
Yes. Well, just Kinder Creatures is spelled normally.
Oh, okay.
They're both spelled like normal words.
Okay, then what was I?
Kinder Creatures.
Huh, okay. Maybe I was looking at something different then, but I thought they were both K's. Anyway. All right. Perfect, Lillie. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me about your new album. The concept for it is absolutely amazing. I mean, I wouldn't have even thought hanging people for being werewolves would have been a thing. I thought maybe vampires, but no, werewolves.
Yeah.
All right then. Interesting. So glad we don't live back in that time, right?
Oh, goodness gracious. Or do we,
Well, you never know. You never know. It's all in how you look at it, I guess. History does repeat itself.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, Lillie, thank you so much for everything that you've done. You're an inspiration to a bunch of us. I can definitely attest to that. Good luck with Kinder Creatures. Say hello to Eric for me and the rest of your bandmates.
Thanks so much for having me, Crystal. It's great to talk to you.
Yes, have a great day.
You too.